Hello! Yeah. So I finally found the time to re-record my video on how to learn Japanese, because I already recorded it once, but then I found out that the built-in microphone of my new camera is just shit. So yeah, today I finally re-recorded it because, as you can see, I'm in my new flat. I moved to the Netherlands for studying, so that's basically why I didn't find the time to do anything. The main reason why I wanted to show you how I learned Japanese, or just tell you some general advices on how to learn Japanese, is that on my very first day in Japan, this happened.
昨日の飛行機墜落事故のことニュースで聞いた？大変だったよ。
So today's video will mainly be about how I learned Japanese, or what tips and tricks I have for you to learn Japanese, but of course those are only the things that helped me when I was learning Japanese, which I technically still am. But something completely different might work better for you, so I suggest you to also take a look at other YouTubers' videos. Some of the stuff that I will tell you about, you probably already heard about it in Rachel's video, because when I started learning Japanese, I actually looked at Rachel's video and I got a lot of things from there. So I think I will start with just some websites, because the internet always helps you most when learning a language. So one website that I highly recommend, and I use this I think more than any of my textbooks, is Taikim's Guide to Japanese Grammar. And this is basically a whole textbook on the internet for free. So yeah, they have all the grammar instructions, they teach you the writing systems and those kind of things. And what I really liked about this website is usually when you buy textbooks, you have to buy a beginner one, an intermediate one, an advanced one, and then they charge you 50 euros for every single book. But in the Guide to Japanese Grammar, you pretty much have everything. So they start at a really beginner level, but they also have higher level Japanese. They also have really good examples in there to explain the grammar you just learned. The thing they don't have is exercises. So if you learn solely from Taikim's Guide to Japanese Grammar, you might that would maybe not be the best idea, because you have to practice to get better at a language. So yeah, I highly recommend you to either make up your own exercises or buy an exercise book or something. Making your own exercises directly leads me to my next point, which is another website called lang8. I think Rachel also talked about this in her video, and this is basically a website where you can upload text that you wrote in Japanese, or pretty much any foreign language that you're studying, and then native speakers will correct what you wrote. And in exchange, you correct things that people who learn your native language wrote. And by doing that, you get points, and with the points you get a higher ranking, and the higher your ranking is, the more people will see what you wrote and the more corrections you will receive. Another really great website is called Hi Native, and I think they also have something to do with lang8. I think I found Hi Native through lang8. And on on Hi Native, you can post questions and receive answers from native speakers. For example, you could ask, oh, what is this and this called in Japanese? And then someone will hopefully write you back. And I think Hi Native also has an app, so you could use it on your phone as well. So my biggest problem when it comes to learning Japanese are kanji. And I think that is for most Japanese learners. So I have two apps for studying kanji when I'm on the go, and they're called Kanji Study and Kanji Senpai. And the reason why I have two apps is that I actually just haven't decided yet on which one to use, because both of them have advantages and disadvantages. So what these apps do is they let you study the kanji based on their JLPT level. So JLPT is the Japanese language proficiency test, and there's different levels, with N1 being the best and N5 being the lowest level. And I have to say that I actually like Kanji Study a bit more than Kanji Senpai, because Kanji Study really focuses only on the kanji, whereas Kanji Senpai also has a lot of vocabulary, which I personally don't feel like I really need it because I learned most of my vocabulary from talking to Japanese people, so I already know like quite some Japanese vocabulary. But if you don't have that prior knowledge, and you just want to study for like the Japanese language proficiency test, then I think Kanji Senpai might maybe be better. I also have a bunch of other Japanese learning apps, and I think I'm just gonna show you what's on my phone. So yeah, of course I have a dictionary app, which is like the most important thing to have on your phone, and mine is called Jisho. I actually don't really know why I chose that one over the other ones while I was in Japan. I think it was just the most reliable one for me. What is really handy about this is that if you click on the kanji, it also tells you like the stroke order and everything, and it also has the conjugation for verbs and adjectives. So if you're not sure how to conjugate that specific word, you can just look it up. So I also have a German-Japanese dictionary that I used to use pretty often that is called wadoku.de, but that one doesn't have an app sadly, so I kind of not use it that much anymore. Another online dictionary that doesn't have an app but still is very great is the Japanese Learners Dictionary, I think. And I think Rachel also covered it in her video, but that is also one that I think is like really reliable, and also it often has like little notes. So for example, if you have a word in English that has different meanings, then it will tell you this is the word for this and this is the word for that meaning. So another app that I have on my phone is called HelloTalk, and HelloTalk is an app that pairs you with Japanese people who are learning your language. And I mean, this is really great for getting to know people, and I think Rachel actually talked about HelloTalk pretty much in depth, and I think one thing that they added though, because her video is already quite old, is the timeline. So they now have a timeline function, which is pretty much like Facebook. So people post there, hopefully in the language they are learning, and then people can correct them. And I think that's really great because you don't have to like write a whole paper or whatever that you can then upload to a Lang 8. You can just be like, oh, hey, I visited the Christmas market today. And then people will correct you if you make a mistake. And it may also help you to find friends who have similar interests. One last app that I have on my phone is the NHK Easy Japanese News app. So this app is a news app that lets you read Japanese news. Now you might be like, how am I supposed to read this? It's all kanji. But what this app does is that it adds little furigana. So furigana are basically just tiny little hiragana that they add on top of all the kanji, so that you can read the kanji. And this is of course nice to like keep up with like Japanese news, but also I think it's really nice for learning more kanji and stuff. So yeah, those were all the apps I have on my phone, or basically we're done now with free stuff. So prepare for the books. I actually bought a lot of books. So in the beginning, of course, I bought the books because I was required to in my Japanese classes, because I took Japanese classes. So now I have to say that Japanese classes weren't like the best for me, because I always thought that like they were really slow and I was always kind of bored. I noticed a huge difference when I was in university, where they were like pretty fast and the level was pretty high. But then I switched to an evening school with mostly people who like had a job and they didn't really have time to learn Japanese in their free time, and they had kids and those kind of things. So there it was just so slow. I mean, it's still nice to have Japanese classes because you have a teacher who is usually a Japanese native speaker who you can just ask any questions you have. I think that is a really nice thing to have, but I don't think it is necessary to go to a Japanese class if you want to study Japanese, because with the internet you can basically ask any Japanese speaker for help. I think Japanese classes are nice and they're a plus if you can have them, but if you don't, then don't worry about it too much. You just have to find another way to get answers to your questions. So yeah, sadly I have to say that most of these books I didn't really like them that much. So I had to use this one for my first Japanese class at university, and I think this is pretty much the same as the Japanese for busy people that you can get in English, only that this is in German. To be honest, I didn't really like this book at all because I feel like the grammar is really poorly explained. If I hadn't had a Japanese teacher to that book, I would have been lost. So for self-study, I don't really recommend it. I also bought these ones for my second course. What I really liked about these is that you actually had an exercise book, and the exercises, they were okay, especially for practicing hiragana and katakana, and also kanji, of course. They were really nice. Having little exercises to like practice your katakana and hiragana can be really helpful at the beginning. So I also bought this. This is just a book that helps you to practice Japanese writing. I think if you search for something like this in English, you will probably find something very easily, or in your native language. I think these exist in almost every language. And if you can't find anything like that in your country, you could always search for free printables, because I think there are a lot of them online. Speaking about like learning hiragana and katakana, I also bought these Kanji Flashcards for studying kanji when I'm on the go. These are the beginner level kanji, but you can also get advanced kanji, I think. They look like this. They always tell you like the stroke order, what it means, different readings, and also they give you examples of combinations in which this kanji is used, which is really good because depending on the combination, you might read the kanji differently. Now the thing is, I was not allowed to use my phone in my Japanese high school, not even when I was studying by myself in the library. If they saw you with your phone, you were in serious trouble, so I never took it with me. I mean, of course I did. Everyone did it. We're just very careful. So anyways, because I couldn't use my phone openly, I had to get another dictionary, of course, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to understand anything. So I got this. This is called a denshi Jisho, which means electronic dictionary. This is what it looks like. So basically, this is just a normal dictionary, so it has English, Japanese, Japanese-English, and German-Japanese and Japanese-German. And the special thing about this is that it has two screens, and the one down here is actually for writing kanji there. And then the dictionary will recognize your handwriting and tell you what that kanji means and those kind of things. And I found this very, very helpful, especially when I was in school, because a lot of time teachers just write on the board they write a whole board of kanji, and then of course I would always sit there like, I can't read anything, great. But with this, it became much easier for me to follow the lessons, because I could just write in the kanji and then look for the translation, and then I knew what those words meant. Because if you don't know the kanji, then you can't even pronounce it, so you can't really search for it in a regular dictionary. So just for the recognizing kanji thing, you don't really need denshi Jisho. I think there's a lot of apps for pretty much any phone that can do the same. I just found this one to be much more precise and reliable, but you don't really need to buy one of these just for that. But as I already told you, I wasn't allowed to use my phone, so this was pretty much the only solution. Another great thing is that this has a ton of example sentences in it, so I found that to be also very helpful when I was learning a new word, and I just wanted to know in what context you could use that word as well. So that was a really nice feature, and overall I really like this dictionary. The only bad thing about these dictionaries is that they're pretty difficult to understand, because if you look at this, you may notice that this is completely written in Japanese. And the reason for that is that these dictionaries are made for Japanese people who are learning English or another foreign language. And so they're not intended to be used by foreigners learning Japanese. And I noticed this sometimes when I was using the dictionary, that it didn't quite work as well as I hoped. Some things were like a little difficult for me to do, but it still works. Like for me, it really helped a lot in the lessons. The downside is though that these things are like pretty expensive. So if you're thinking about getting an electronic dictionary, you should first think about whether you really need one, and then if you decide to get one, then make sure that you do some research on which is the right one for you. So I think I have talked about pretty much all the things I bought or all my books except for one, and that is the one that I actually used most also while I was in Japan. So my favorite book was Mina no Nihongo, and you may have already heard about this from like other YouTubers or just on the internet in general, because this is a pretty good book, and I think a lot of people use it because of that. And I also bought the exercise thing for this book. This is actually the intermediate level. I decided to get the intermediate one because I bought this when I was already in Japan for like 2 months, I think. So I was already at like quite an intermediate level. And I also got this in Japan and not in Germany because outside of Japan, these books can be really expensive. Another thing that may be important to know about this book is that it's completely in Japanese. So there is no English explanations in here whatsoever. So how it works is that it only shows you example sentences on how to use the new grammar in Japanese. So for me, that system actually worked pretty good. There are English explanations that you can get additionally, so that's like a whole other book just with the grammar explanations, and they also have them in like different languages. I decided not to get one because for me it just worked fine. I was surrounded by Japanese people all the time, so whenever I didn't understand the topic, I could just walk up to them and ask them to explain it to me. If you don't have that, you might consider getting the explanation thing as well, because otherwise you'd probably be a bit lost. I also wanted to talk about general tips about learning Japanese. So of course, the #1 tip is don't give up, just keep practicing. It can be a little bit frustrating in the beginning, but you will get better eventually. And also, one thing that is essential for learning Japanese is actually talking to Japanese people. The problem with Japanese classes usually is that you only talk to other people who learn Japanese but who are not native speakers, except for your teacher, of course. So I think one of the best ways to learn Japanese is to actually just start talking to Japanese people, and then you will make mistakes, of course, but that doesn't really matter. You will learn from them and you will get better. Now, if you live in Japan or go on exchange there, of course, that's really easy. You just go outside and there's Japanese people everywhere, so that makes it really easy to find people to talk Japanese to. If you live outside of Japan, though, you can still find people who are Japanese who are willing to talk to you in their native language. So, for example, you could search for a tandem partner, because maybe there's a person living in your city who is trying to learn your language and is Japanese. Now, when I was still living in Germany, I was lucky because the university in my town had a faculty for Japanese studies. So every year some Japanese exchange students came there, and they were almost always looking for tandem partners. So I could just walk into the university and they put up little notes. Hi, I'm searching for a German tandem partner, and those kind of things. So that made it really easy for me. If there is no university in your town or no university that offers Japanese studies, you could always use the internet. There's several websites where you can search for tandem partners. Of course, you can also use Lang 8 to make friends with Japanese people, and maybe someone is willing to Skype with you or just like talk on the phone. And then of course there's Hello Talk, which I already talked about, so you can meet people there. I think they also have an option where you can like say in which city you are located, and it will automatically show you people that live close to you. So that's also a nice option. I mean, of course you always have to be careful when you're meeting with strangers from the internet, but yeah, I think you're all old enough to know that on your own. So yeah, how I learned Japanese, if you didn't already like get this from the video, was that I took Japanese classes in Germany at first. I took Japanese classes for like around 1 year before I left for Japan, so my Japanese was pretty bad at the beginning, but still that didn't really matter because I got better really quickly. Like I think after 2 months I could like understand most things. And now, after I lived in Japan for 7 months, I feel very comfortable about just having a conversation. Of course, if it gets really into a specific topic, I still have problems because I don't know the vocabulary, and also kanji are still hard for me. But I feel like daily life in Japanese wouldn't be a problem anymore. If you are currently learning Japanese, I would like to hear your experiences. How is it going? If you learn Japanese already, or you like fluent in Japanese by now, you can also leave me some tips, because there's still so many things I need to learn, and maybe you used something else that I didn't use and you found it really great. So if you have something like this, just leave a comment. I will go back to working on my next cosplay. If you're interested in that, you could check out my Facebook page. I will post process pictures there, and yeah, I'll be back.